You're listening to the Lit Up Lightworker podcast, bringing you fun and soulful interviews with spiritual teachers with the aim of tuning you in and lighting you up. With your host, George Lizos.
Hey Lightworker, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lit Up Lightworker podcast. This episode was so much fun to record, and I know you're going to love it. Bridget Marquardt was Hugh Hefner's ex-girlfriend and the star of the popular reality TV show Girls Next Door. While living at the Playboy Mansion, she trained as a paranormal investigator and started exploring the paranormal activity at the mansion. Years later, she's launched her own podcast, Ghost Magnet, where she explores and documents paranormal activity in America's most haunted locations. She has some amazingly creepy stories to share. The best of it is right at the end of the episode, so be sure to listen to it all. If you'd like to join me live for one of the recordings of the Lit Up Lightworker podcast, be sure to follow me on Instagram at George Lizos and to join my Facebook groups, Your Spiritual Toolkit and Elemental Communication. Enjoy this episode with Bridget Marquardt. Today, I'm so excited to have with me Bridget Marquardt, who is best known for her starring role in E! Network's wildly popular reality show, The Girls Next Door, as one of Hugh Hefner's 3 girlfriends. After moving out of the Playboy Mansion in 2009, Bridget went on to host Travel Channel's Bridget's Sexiest Beaches and Animal Nation on Yahoo. Bridget has had a lifelong fascination with the paranormal, leading her to train as a paranormal investigator, and has recently launched the Ghost Magnet podcast, exploring all things paranormal. Bridget, welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Bridget, let's go back to the beginning. I first got to know you from watching The Girls Next Door, and I loved your bubbly and fun-loving personality. But what I particularly enjoyed were all the episodes where you ventured into paranormal investigations and looking for ghosts, even dressing up in all sorts of creepy costumes, which got me thinking. It got me thinking, surely your fascination with the spirit world should have started before your time at the Playboy Mansion. So my question is, what got you interested in ghost hunting and paranormal investigation in the first place?
Well, I think there was a lead up ever since I was little and as young as I can remember. I had a fascination for scary movies and Halloween and just spooky stories and that kind of thing. And then when I was about 12, my cousin and I got a Ouija board, and we were playing the Ouija board. And at that time, I didn't really know anybody who had died except for my great grandfather had passed away. So we were trying to reach out to him. And the planchette was moving around the board, and I'd accuse her of doing it, and she'd accuse me of doing it. And then finally we just put the board away and we were like, whatever. And then after that, I started having visions of my grandfather and terrible nightmares about him. And things just started happening that were more on the paranormal realm. And my mom had me talk to our pastor at our church, who told me, he didn't really seem to believe me. He just told me to keep a diary. And then my grandma took me to go talk to a psychiatrist, and she was curious if anything traumatic had happened between my grandfather and I. And I'm like, no, he was like my great grandfather, and we had a totally fine relationship, like nothing weird at all. But ever since then, since those paranormal things started happening to me, I feel like I have been kind of, I don't know if you would say obsessed, but just very, very interested and intrigued by the whole spiritual world and wanting to find more and always looking for proof, because now I kind of write off those first instances as maybe just, I've heard that a lot of preteen, teen girls go through periods where they have like paranormal situations, and it's kind of hormonal and kind of growing up. And I don't know what the answer for that is. I don't know if they're just more susceptible at that time to seeing things, or if it is just hormonal and emotional. But it piqued my curiosity, and ever since then, ever since about 12, I've been obsessed with the paranormal and ghost hunting and exploring the spiritual world, and just trying to find, I think for me it's trying to find something that proves it 100% without a doubt, even though I know that nobody's really got concrete evidence, or we would all know it to be 100% true. But I'm still looking for that one thing that's at least going to prove it to myself.
Oh my goodness, what an unfolding of a story. So what I find interesting about the story is that you never gave up on your desire to prove paranormal activity, because many of my listeners, we grow up being exposed to the spiritual world, and yet society comes into doubt and sabotage what we're feeling by naming it as like an illness or like just our illusion. And despite that, from your childhood, your desire to find out the truth persisted up until your adulthood years. So how has this journey unfolded growing up, moving into the Playboy Mansion? We're gonna discuss your stories from the mansion a little bit as well. But how did your journey unfold towards your desire in becoming a paranormal investigator?
Well, it went from being, at 12 or 13, being scary and being something that I didn't feel like I wanted in my life, to becoming something that was more interesting to me and something that I wanted to explore more. And I started doing just for fun. I didn't have like a ghost hunting kit or anything like that, but I would specifically stay at places that I knew were haunted, and I would try and see if I could experience anything. And then eventually, when I was at the mansion, that's when I started doing my paranormal certificate online courses.
Yes.
And then I started getting a little bit of a kit together, like an EMF meter and a laser thermometer and voice recorder and things like that, so that when I did go places, I could bring that little kit with me and do a little bit more professional of a ghost hunt, instead of just relying fully on just my feelings and my intuition. I have actual instruments now that can help, determine whether there's anything going on. And then it just became sort of a hobby for me. Like everywhere I go, I want to stay somewhere that's haunted. If we go on vacation, I'm like, oh, we should go to this restaurant, it's supposed to be haunted, or stay at this hotel, it's supposed to be haunted, or go on this haunted tour or whatever, and I'll bring my kit. And it's just grown from there. And so it's always been a hobby, and it's always been a passion. And I've always thought it would be fun to do a show or a podcast on it, and I just had never done it up until now. And now I finally have a podcast. Yes. And it's really fun because I can talk to people every week about their ghost stories, and I can learn about new locations and learn about people's different experiences and kind of get their thoughts on what they think it is, and see their evidence or proof that they feel that they've found. And I just really enjoy talking about it. I really enjoy hearing other people's stories. And I also enjoy making a list while they're telling me, so that I can go try and experience what they experienced as well.
Yes, and that's what I love about your podcast. I was so glad you did it, because I know you have so many different interests. You like the trapeze, you like traveling, you did Bridget's Sexiest beaches as well. I'm like, I hope she does paranormal next. I was just so excited when I saw your podcast show up. So yes. I'm going to talk a little bit about the gadgets and the technology in a little bit, because I find that fascinating. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about ghosts and what ghosts are. So as part of the work that I do as a space clearer, I psychically scan the energy in a space for different kinds of entities and energies. And usually people call me when they think that their house is haunted. But most of the times, when I go there and when I tune in the energy of the space, what I find is usually not a ghost, but other kinds of energies, such as maybe a poltergeist or an elemental or telepathic messages just hovering in the ethers, or even extraterrestrials. So my question is, what are ghosts and how are they different from other types of spirits and energies or entities?
I think for most people that ghost is just kind of a generic term that we use for anything like that, because the majority of people don't really know how to decipher. And even I'm still learning how to decipher between what everything is. So I think that ghost is just a very, very general term we use for anything that happens that's kind of paranormal that we don't understand or feel. In my opinion, I don't think that the average person knows the difference between a ghost and a poltergeist or
an elemental or extraterrestrial or something like that. Yeah.
any of the differentiations. I don't think that they know. I mean, obviously, extraterrestrial, if you're like talking aliens and that kind of stuff, they might sense a difference in something like that, but not necessarily, because I mean, I do not claim to know what ghosts or poltergeists or anything are necessarily, or what they're coming from, or how we are feeling them, but I can't say that they aren't alien as well that we're feeling. And I know that some people have suggested that. So it's very possible.
But in general, when you go into a place and you're gonna search or use one of your instruments to try and identify paranormal activity, are there any indicators that tell you, like, help you understand and know for sure within your body, without the instruments, that there is something there, even if someone doesn't know what that feeling is, or even if people don't know how to differentiate between them? Because you're right, and most people don't know how to differentiate between the different spirits and entities and energies out there. But is there a feeling or an indicator, like some kind of a sensation that people can use to know whether, let's say, for example, there is some kind of paranormal activity going on in their house?
Well, I think for me, when I go into a place and it's not 100% accurate, but sometimes I'll go into a place and you can feel a kind of a heaviness. I definitely think that there's a different feeling in rooms that are clean and entity free, but then but you can go into a building and sometimes you can really feel a lot of heaviness and or like pressure on your chest, like it's hard to breathe, or there's a definite feeling. Sometimes it's the goosebumps and that kind of thing. And I don't think that everybody is sensitive to that. I think that some people have a way of just tuning that out and are not in touch with that side of themselves at all. And they can walk into the most haunted building and not feel a thing. And then there's other people who are so sensitive to it that they can't even get near the building without, feeling sick or shortness of breath and things like that.
Oh, which brings me into what are there certain people or places that you think magnetize ghosts more than other people? Because I was listening to your podcast, the introduction of your podcast, and you say people have told me that I'm a conduit, but I'm still exploring that. So do you think that there are people who naturally are ghost magnets, therefore they attract paranormal activity? And why do you think this is so?
Well, that's what I was told by Barry Taff. Are you familiar with Barry Taff?
Yes.
Okay, so he came to the mansion and did an investigation for us, or with us, and he told me that I was a conduit. And he said that some people are just more in touch, and that the entities will use you to come through. So it's not necessarily the house that's haunted, it's you being there that allowed that to happen. So he said that a lot of people are conduits, or what we're saying in the show, ghost magnets. So everywhere they go, well, not everywhere they go, but a lot of places that they go, things will happen to them or around them or to people that are with them because of them. But if they weren't there, if you took that person out, then the entities may not have a way to manifest, because they're using that person's energy to do it.
Amazing. So it's like certain people are like mediums or channels for that goes to pass through a message, maybe to a loved one, or to just communicate.
Yeah, or to even manifest or to do anything,
Yeah, like move stuff around.
Yeah, or just even like show a presence or make a tapping or any kind of indication. They need energy from somebody or something to do that.
Exactly. Whereas if there's nobody there, like there's no point for the ghost to just manifest in some way, isn't it?
Right. But then even if somebody were there who isn't open to that kind of stuff or is not a conduit in any way, they may not be able to use that person to get through. So they need somebody who it's not something to me, it's not something I consciously do. I don't say, okay, you can use my energy or you can come through me. I absolutely don't volunteer that at all, but it's just something that they know and are able to do.
Bridget, you mentioned briefly Ouija boards, which I remember while I did a degree in metaphysical sciences, and then we had a clear message from the instructors: do not use Ouija boards. So I haven't used it before because of that, because I was told not to. But I've always been interested. I've used so many different other kind of tools. Like I use tarot cards on a daily basis. I use crystal balls. I use all sorts of divination tools. But I won't touch an Ouija board, and I don't understand why. So I need an opinion from someone who's had an experience with it. What is it about Ouija boards?
I don't know. There is, so since that happened when I was a kid, I refused to play with it ever since, because what I was experiencing after we put the Ouija board away, that was supposedly my great grandfather. Was not my great grandfather. Like even though he was appearing to look like him, and in my dreams he looked like him, it was not. This was something that was not a good presence. It was not like having a guardian angel. It was like having I don't want to go as far as to say demonic, but it was evil. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't there for my best interest. It was trying to give me nightmares. It was trying to scare me and that kind of thing. And that was definitely in no way my grandfather, or would he would never have wanted to do anything like that. So I think it was just appearing as him and never really was him. And so therefore it made me think that when you are playing with the Ouija board, assuming you really are talking to entities or things on the other side or some sort of energies, you don't really know what you're getting. And it's very easy for them to fool you, because you think you're talking to somebody who you knew and loved, but you don't know. You don't really know who you're talking to, and you don't know who you're inviting into your world. And so assuming that this wasn't just preteen, whatever they want to call it, hormones or anything, or imagination running wild with me, I feel like whatever happened to me was a negative thing. And my mom even tried to throw away the Ouija board, and it was back in our closet.
Oh my God.
She was mad at me for pulling it out of the trash. And I'm like, I didn't pull it out of the trash. And she's like, well, I know I threw it away. And I'm like, I did not touch it. And it was still there. And like my pastor told me to keep a diary of all the stuff that happened. And so I kept a diary, and the diary just disappeared. And to this day, we have never found that diary.
Oh my goodness. That is creepy.
I really want to find the diary. I would love to, because I don't know if this happens to you, but for me, when things happen that are paranormal, I have a way of sort of explaining them off. Like, I mean, there could a full body apparition could appear in front of me right now, and I would go, oh, that had to be, and my brain would immediately start to try and like explain why that happened. And so I won't feel scared at the moment, because I'll be like, oh, that was just whatever my brain like wrote it off as. But then later I'll be thinking about it and going, wait, no, that was really weird. Did you see what I saw? Like that wasn't right. That isn't normal what just happened.
I get it 100%. So it's basically usually our ego comes in and sabotages whatever we experience paranormal. It's like that logical side of us will be like, oh my God, no, it's nothing. It's just a coincidence, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize, oh shit, it was actually real.
Yeah. So people ask me, aren't you afraid of all this stuff and everything? And I'm thinking, no, because even when something does happen, my mind immediately tries to solve it and tell me it's not anything to worry about. And it's not till later that I'm like, wait, that was scary.
And you made a really good point about Ouija boards, in the sense that we should all have like spiritual discernment when it comes to the spirit world. Not every single spirit that wants to communicate with us wants the best for us. So it comes to the point where you have to be assertive with the spirit and know that if it doesn't feel good, then it usually doesn't want good for you either. And therefore you should create a boundary there. So thank you for bringing that up. Now,
also, can I just say that you don't know, because like whatever we were talking to on the board seemed perfectly fine. There was no signs that there was something evil or not right about it. It wasn't until later, like a couple of weeks later, when I started seeing my grandfather and things started happening and my nightmares started happening and stuff, that I realized that whatever we were talking to was not him.
So they can get very sneaky. How did you manage to judge and discern whether a spirit growing up, and therefore as you've had more experiences with the spirit world, how did you come to realize whether a spirit was benevolent or malevolent?
Well, I think that maybe you never know, especially right off the bat. But for me, it's just kind of really paying attention to my intuition and how I feel
Yes.
when I enter a place, and if I feel like things are happening or things are going on, I really just try to tap into how I'm feeling. Is something telling me that I should be scared or leave, or is something telling me that this is okay and it's fine to stick around and investigate and try and experience more of it? I feel like you just have to really, there's no way of knowing for sure, in my opinion, but you just have to really tap into your gut feeling and your intuition, and how you're feeling deep inside.
Yeah, most of the times our bodies like know best when to trust something or not.
Yeah.
So let's move into the instruments you use in a paranormal investigator. Now, I was never used to or aware of these instruments. My audience is more familiar with the intuitive ways of feeling for ghosts and the paranormal. Let's say, for example, using clairvoyance or other types of psychic skills. But I know from what I've seen that training to become a paranormal investigator involves using various instruments and gadgets that measure some sort of something that you're going to tell us about in a little bit. But my first experience with it, Bridget, oh my God, it was a few years ago. My ex-boyfriend was a professional medium and paranormal investigator. I didn't really give it the whole thing much attention until he came one day with his phone recorder, and he played me a very creepy message from one of his explorations in a haunted house.
Ooh.
And it was basically the spirit just talking this, like you see in the movies, like I'm here to get you, like in a very hoarse voice. And it terrified me. So, and they couldn't hear that message like with their physical ears, but it got picked up by the recorder. So
exactly.
My question is, can you talk to us a little bit about those instruments, what they are, and what they can help us do?
Okay, so like what you were talking about is just an electronic recorder. So you pick up voices sometimes. So you'll ask questions, you'll walk around, and that's why you see on a lot of ghost hunting shows and stuff, people will say, "Is anybody here?" And they'll ask it repeatedly and nobody answers usually. And they'll ask, "Oh, can you tell me your name? And they'll ask a million questions, because later they'll go back in and they'll listen to that whole recording. And then sometimes, like you just said, there's no voice at the actual time, but the recorder will capture the voice. And that's called an EVP.
Yeah.
So electronic voice phenomenon. So that will be on there. That's why you always want to go back and listen to your recordings, even on if you're shooting with a video camera or whatever, going back and listening really closely to all the audio on that, because sometimes you'll pick something up that you couldn't hear in real time, but the electronic recorder picked it up. And then there's EMF meters, and that's electromagnetic field meters. And those basically are just picking up electromagnetic fields. So assuming that is what a ghost or an entity is using, is magnetic fields to create itself, then when you are walking through with an EMF meter and it lights up, as long as you're not next to anything that would be making it light up, like say an electronic, say like an outlet or a refrigerator that's running, or a TV. If you're just in the middle of a room, or you're in a abandoned, say, prison that doesn't even have electricity going on or whatever, and your EMF meter is lighting up, then you know that something else is there that's causing some sort of magnetic field in front of you. And you can use that too to ask it questions. You can say, like, supposedly they can control how strong their energy is right there. So you can ask it, if you're here, will you light up my EMF meter? And then sometimes it will light up in response to your questions.
And
but you have to,
yeah.
Oh, it's like using, I'm sure you've used like the pendulum and things like that
Yes,
before. It's like that.
Pendulum.
You have to establish what certain things mean. So light my EMF meter up all the way to red for yes, and only in green for no. And like you establish what you want your your answers to look like, so that you're able to communicate, and then you can ask questions. So if you have something in front of you that's willing to participate, and then you can use your EMF meter to do that. People also use flashlights. I don't know if you've ever seen that. They'll set up a flashlight and they'll unscrew the top so that it can be turned on and off with the slightest little motion.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that.
Oh, so it's like flashlight works. So you set it on there, you unscrew the top so that it can be turned on very, very, just like almost by air passing by, and then you ask questions, and like turn the light on, make it flash twice for yes, flash once for no, and then you start asking questions. Is anybody here?
I got goosebumps.
And yeah, it's really cool. And then I also have a laser thermometer, because some people claim cold spots are indication that there's something there. So I find it really hard to go, oh yeah, it's warm right here, but it's really cold right here, like just putting my hand through it. So for me, these gadgets and these instruments, like I said at the top of the show, I really want to prove to myself that there's something. So as much as I love mediums and clairvoyance and that kind of stuff, and I'm intrigued by the information they have, like I want science to show me that there's something here. I want the numbers. I want the maybe it's all the statistics classes I had to take and that kind of thing, but I want the hardcore numbers. I want to see, I want to see something that's very specific that's going to make me believe beyond a doubt, because it's not that I don't believe clairvoyance and that kind of thing. I totally do. And I'm intrigued by all that, but I need proof. And that's what I'm in search of, proof.
And I love that you have the podcast now to explore that.
Yeah. And then the instruments, even though they're not definitive proof right now, they are something to give me some sort of, to back up what I'm feeling or what I'm sensing, Yes,
absolutely. So speaking of those instruments and gadgets and your experiences with them, could you share with us your creepiest encounter with a ghost using one of those instruments, or not actually?
My creepiest encounter with a ghost, it was at the Myrtles Plantation, which is in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And I went just a couple of years ago with my fiance. He took me. I've been wanting to go here forever. I've read books on this house. I've seen documentaries on it, and I just know how extremely haunted it is, and all these stories that have happened. And it has a major history, from slavery history to Civil War history to a man one day somebody knocked on the door and he was shot right at his front door, and he made it up to the 17th step and died on the 17th stair. 2 little girls were murdered in the house. It has so much history there. So we went there, and we had this one section of the house to ourselves, because it was just it was considered part of our room. So it was the main entryway and the staircase where the guy died. And in the main entryway, there's this mirror, and it has these streaks on it. And they said it drips blood, and people see things in the mirror, and they take pictures of the mirror, and things appear in their photos and that kind of stuff. And then our room was upstairs. So we're the only ones allowed in that portion of the house. And so around midnight, I get out my kit, and my fiance, who is a major skeptic, by the way, but he's a good sport.
Yeah.
I give him the EMF meter, and I'm sitting on the 17th step with my voice recorder, and he's got the EMF meter over the mirror and that kind of stuff. And I'm asking questions and everything. Nothing's happening. And we were probably doing our investigation for an hour and a half or 2 hours or so. And finally, I'm just like, I guess nothing's going to happen. I mean, we weren't getting anything. There wasn't even a blip on the K2 meter. It just, nothing. In fact, I kept turning it on and off thinking something was wrong with it, because it just nothing. I mean, I get more of a blip at home where there's nothing, So I was like, what is going on? This is weird. So we go to bed, and all of a sudden we're awakened by the sound of like furniture being scooted around and squeaking and people running up and down the stairs. Like I said before, nobody is allowed in that part of the house except for us. We're the only ones that have the key to that part for the night. So we open up the door, and there's nobody out there, and we can hear there's these squeaky floorboards right outside our door. We can hear somebody walking there, but there's nobody there. And the stomping on the stairs and the moving of furniture. And there was this heaviness in the room. And we were both like, we were kind of groggy and still out of it because we had fallen asleep. And so every time we heard something, he would grab my arm and be like, did you hear that? And I'd be like, yeah. And then something else happened. I'm like, oh my God, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. And we could hear little kids playing. And I never even saw little kids staying there. I mean, it was just, the house was alive with all kinds of stuff going on. And all of a sudden there was like this electronic chirping in the room, and we both bolted up, and my EMF meter was sitting on the nightstand, and it was just lighting up and then turning off, lighting up, turning off, like full throttle. And my fiance was like, your EMF meter is making noise, but my EMF meter doesn't make noise. So I was like, it's not that. And we were like, oh my God. So we were just terrified, and we were not expecting what happened. I asked him, what time is it? And it was like 3:17 or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like devil's hour. And then, so this went on like just craziness until all of a sudden I just felt a release, and the room just felt lighter, and the frog outside started chirping again in the pond, and like I just felt like it was done. And I asked my fiance, what time is it? And he was like, oh, it's like 4:12 or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, it's over. It was like an hour of absolute insanity. I was so freaked out. And then the next morning we went to breakfast, and it's down in the gift shop area, and they were like, oh, so what room did you guys stay in? And we're like, we told them what room, and they were like, oh, and you made it through the night? The last two people to stay there didn't make it through the night. And then there's a group of people sitting in another table, and they were like, were you guys moving furniture around all night? We're like, it wasn't us. We were not moving the furniture.
I would have been so creeped out if I were in your situation as well.
I was, and the weird thing is that I typically am the first one to jump up and want to like start investigating and stuff, but something about that to me just had me like terrified and in bed, grabbing the arms of my fiance and him grabbing me back, going, oh my God, did you, like there was, I wasn't compelled to get up and try and investigate. I was literally terrified.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so you've recently launched your podcast, The Ghost Magnet, which explore all things paranormal. And in the first episode, you talk about the ghosts of the Playboy Mansion. Could you give us your most memorable ghost story from your time at the mansion? And do you think that it actually is haunted?
I do think it's haunted. I mean that the Playboy Mansion was built in 1926 and completed in 1927, and it's had a lot of people come through its doors and stay there and live there, and a lot of people that were very close to that house, like there is especially people in Hef's years, but the ghost stories from that start. Before that, the original owners were the Letzes, and Mrs. Letz, there's a rumor that she was either pushed or jumped off the balcony onto the marble floor to her death. And so that was obviously way before Hef bought the mansion. So when Hef was there, there were ghost stories to begin with of Mrs. Letz, and some of Hef's older friends who had stayed there all had stories. Staff had stories. And so one day, it was the day that I got my dog, Wednesday. So she's just a brand new little puppy in my room. My sister is sitting on the bed with me. My friend Stacy is on the end of the bed. Little Winnie, my dog, is sitting in like a little makeshift cage and stuff that we had for her at the end of the bed. And all of a sudden, and we're just talking, watching TV, having a glass of wine, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see a woman standing in the closet area that goes from my room to the closet to the bathroom. She's just standing in the doorway there. And wow. I gasped. And when I turned to look full straight on, it was gone, like it always is. It drives me nuts. And but I wasn't the only one to see it, thank goodness, because that's exactly when your mind starts rationalizing it. Well, maybe you didn't see anything. Maybe that was something else, but my sister saw something, and my sister immediately just started crying and was like, oh my God, what was that? I don't even want to know. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. And then my friend Stacy was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I saw something too. And, that was probably the biggest, thing that happened to me, the most clear thing, and something that somebody else saw too. But little things would happen as well. Like if we were sitting in my room one time, it was Holly and I, we were on the floor scrapbooking, and the TV was on just as background noise, and we were talking about paranormal stuff, and she was like, I think it's cool and everything, I just have never experienced anything, so I don't really believe in that kind of stuff and everything. And then all of a sudden my TV just went on full max volume.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
We were like, oh my God. And I jumped up and I grabbed the remote off the bed and I'm turning the TV down. And I'm like, we looked at each other. I'm like, was that a sign? I think that might have been a sign for you.
Oh my God, surely. Oh my God, such a poignant experience as well. So what more can we expect from the Ghost Magnet podcast? You've had 2 episodes right now, right? Or was it 3?
I've recorded 3 episodes, but 2 of them are there. The next one is going to be on Monday. Well, I'm just trying to get all different kinds of stories and different aspects. So right now, the first one was about ghosts of the Playboy Mansion. The second one is I have Scott Michaels from Dearly Departed Tours. He does tours here in LA that are kind of on the dark side of Hollywood. He was telling me about the Curse of Benedict Canyon, which is an area in LA that just has really, really crappy stuff happen to people that live there, and it's a pattern. And so we discussed that. And then next week I have on a former Miss USA and Playboy Playmate and TV star Shayna Mokler on, and she's going to tell me about some of her ghost stories that have happened to her. And I want the show to evolve. Like I see doing live investigations for the podcast. I see inviting people to come on to tell their stories that are, listeners. And I see, I also want to interview actual locations. Like I would love to, just for an example, like have the Queen Mary people come on and tell me about why the history of their ship and why it's so haunted and things that people have reported and that kind of stuff too. So I really want the show to evolve. We're only on the going into the 3rd episode, but I already see like a bunch of things that I want to branch into.
Oh yeah, I would love to see you do like live investigations on the podcast as well. So what are some of your dream haunted places to visit that you'd potentially want to see on the podcast?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I have a huge bucket list, and I'm trying to, I keep it all in the US right now, just because, I mean, there are places that I want to go that are all over the world.
Oh, you got to come to Europe. We have so many of them.
I know. I for sure want to, but I'm just trying to keep it realistic for our first season of the podcast.
Of course.
And I'm like, what can I actually get away with? If I throw it on them that I need to go to Europe right off the bat, they're going to be like, okay, Bridget, let's get realistic on this. Unless you know somebody in Europe that wants to fly me over and do some investigations. But if you do, let me know.
Oh, for sure.
But I have a huge list of places, and some of them I've already been to, but I would love to go back and do a podcast, and then places that I just like dream places to go,
Yes.
I love Louisiana. I mean, New Orleans has such a vibe. Have you ever been there? I've
actually never been to the States.
Really?
It's so weird because like all my students, all my clients are from the States, but I've never actually visited. But maybe that's the perfect excuse for me to come there and do a paranormal trip around the US.
Yes, definitely. There really is. I mean, I know our history is not as great as in Europe. I mean, you guys really go way back, so I'm sure that your stuff is much more historical, first of all, and therefore leads to more types of paranormal things and stuff. But we have a lot here, and it would be a fun tour.
Absolutely. Bridget, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all about your paranormal stories and expertise. I've had such a great time chatting. Perfect end to my day and the start to your day, I guess. And I can't wait for everyone to go check out your podcast, Ghost Magnet. And I also can't wait to tune into the new episodes too. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Lit Up Lightworker podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at George Lizos to grab your free Lightworker survival guide and catch the next live episode.